HDMI. HDMI stands for High Definition Multimedia Input. It is the most common TV input in use today. Almost every modern device, game consoles, streaming sticks, Blu-ray players, laptops, and media players, connects to a TV through HDMI. The reason HDMI became the standard is simple. One cable carries both video and audio at the same time. Before HDMI, separate cables were needed for picture and sound. HDMI simplified everything into a single connection. Modern HDMI supports up to 4K and even 8K resolution, along with high frame rates and HDR for increased image quality. HDMI 2.1, the latest version, supports 4K at 120 FPS, which is especially important for gaming on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. It also supports features such as RAR and ALLM for smoother gaming. One thing to note, not all HDMI ports on a TV are the same. Most TVs have 2 or 3 HDMI ports, but only 1 or 2 of them may be HDMI 2.1. The others are often HDMI 2.0, which maxes out at 4K 60 FPS. Always check which port is which before connecting your best device. VGA. VGA stands for Video Graphics Array. It is an analog video connection developed in 1987 by IBM. The connector is a large trapezoid-shaped plug with 15 pins, and it only carries video, no audio. VGA was the standard connection between computers and monitors for about 2 decades. Before HDMI and DisplayPort, if you connected a laptop to a projector or an external monitor, you almost certainly used VGA. The image quality from VGA depends entirely on the cable length and quality, because it carries an analog signal. Short, high-quality cables can produce a sharp image. Long or cheap cables produce a soft, washed-out picture. VGA maxes out at 1080p under ideal conditions. It has no ability to carry audio, HDR, or high frame rates. Today, VGA is essentially obsolete on consumer TVs and most modern monitors. You might still find it on projectors, older office monitors, and budget displays. If your device only has VGA output, an HDMI to VGA adapter will work, but you will need a separate audio cable, since VGA carries no sound. DisplayPort. DisplayPort is a connection standard developed specifically for monitors and displays. You will not find it on most consumer TVs, but it is very common on PC monitors and some high-end gaming displays. DisplayPort looks similar to HDMI but with one angled corner instead of 2. The biggest advantage of DisplayPort over HDMI is bandwidth. DisplayPort 1.4 supports 4K at 144 FPS, and DisplayPort 2.1 goes even higher for competitive gaming where high refresh rates matter. 144 Hz, 165 Hz, 240 Hz. DisplayPort is often the preferred connection over HDMI. DisplayPort also supports daisy chaining, meaning you can connect multiple monitors in a chain from a single cable. That is useful for multi-monitor setups without needing a separate cable for every display. If you are building a gaming PC or a workstation with multiple monitors, you will likely use DisplayPort. For a regular home TV, connected to a streaming device or console, HDMI is still the standard. DisplayPort is mainly a monitor and PC world connection. USB-C and Thunderbolt. USB-C is a small, oval-shaped connector that has become standard on laptops, tablets, and smartphones. Many modern monitors and some TVs now include USB-C ports. What makes USB-C useful for displays is that a single cable can carry video, audio, and power at the same time. You can plug your laptop into a USB-C monitor and charge the laptop through the same cable while the video plays on screen. No power adapter is needed separately. Thunderbolt is a version of USB-C developed by Intel and Apple. It uses the same physical connector but supports much higher bandwidth. Thunderbolt 4 can run 2 4K monitors simultaneously through a single cable. On MacBooks, all ports are Thunderbolt, which is why a single cable from a MacBook can power a monitor, transfer files, and charge the laptop at once. The main limitation is compatibility. Not every USB-C cable supports video output. Some are charge only. Always check the cable specs before assuming it will carry video. A cable labeled USB-C charging only will not display anything on your monitor. Additionally, some TVs support USB-C only for service or updates, not for full video input, so checking the TV specifications is essential to avoid frustration. USB-A. USB-A is the rectangular USB port you probably know best, the standard port that has been on computers and TVs for decades. On a TV, the USB-A port is not for connecting video sources. It is mainly used for two things. First, playing media files. You can plug in a USB flash drive, loaded with movies, photos, or music, and the TV will play them directly, without needing any external device. Most smart TVs support common formats like MP4, MKV, and JPEG through USB. Second, powering small devices. Many streaming sticks, like a Fire TV stick or Chromecast, can be powered directly from a TV's USB-A port instead of needing a wall outlet. This keeps your setup cleaner with fewer power adapters. USB-A on a TV is not for high-speed data transfer or video input in the way HDMI is. Think of it as a convenience port, useful for media playback and powering accessories, not for connecting a laptop or gaming console. Some TVs also allow USB-A ports to record live TV or update firmware, adding small but useful functionality beyond simple media playback. Ethernet. Ethernet is a wired internet connection. On a TV, the Ethernet port, also called RJ45, looks like a slightly wider phone jack. You connect one end to the TV and the other end to your router using a standard network cable. The advantage over Wi-Fi is stability. A wired Ethernet connection does not drop, does not slow down when other devices are on the network, and does not suffer from interference from walls or other electronics. If you stream a lot of 4K content, or use your TV for gaming, Ethernet gives you a more consistent connection than Wi-Fi. The downside is simply the cable. Running an Ethernet cable from either is not your router to your TVM is not always practical, depending on where the TV is placed. For most casual users, Wi-Fi is fine. But if your TV is close to your router and you want the most reliable streaming experience, plugging in an Ethernet cable is the easiest upgrade you can make. Some TVs also allow networked file sharing through Ethernet, letting you access media stored on your home server, which can be very convenient for households with large media libraries. Optical audio TOSLink. Optical audio, also called TOSLink or SPVD, is an audio-only output found on most TVs. It does not carry video at all. The port is a small square opening. When you plug in the cable, you can see a red light glowing inside. That light is actually how the signal travels. The cable uses pulses of light to transmit audio data. Optical is commonly used to connect a TV to a soundbar or AV receiver when HDMI ARC is not available. Before ARC became standard, optical was the main way to get audio out of a TV and into a sound system. The limitation of optical is that it cannot carry the highest quality audio formats. It supports Dolby Digital 5.1, but not lossless formats like Dolby True HD or Dolby Atmos in full quality. If your soundbar or receiver supports HDMI eARC, use that instead for better audio. Optical is still useful as a backup connection, or when connecting older audio equipment that does not have HDMI. Another advantage is that optical cables are immune to electrical interference, making them reliable even in setups with many devices. Component video. Component video uses 5 cables, 3 for video and 2 for audio. The 3 video cables are colored red, green, and blue, labeled Y, PV, and PR. Unlike composite video, Component splits the video signal into separate channels, which produces a much sharper and more accurate image. Component was the best analog video connection available. Before HDMI became mainstream, it supported up to 1080i resolution, which was considered high definition at the time. DVD players, early HD cable boxes, and the PlayStation 2 and 3 all used component video. If you connected a PS2 to a TV through composite, you got a blurry image. Switch to component and the picture became noticeably cleaner. The downside is the cable count. 5 separate cables for one connection is messy, and component only carries analog signals, so it cannot match digital connections like HDMI in sharpness or color accuracy. Today, component is rarely found on new TVs. It is mostly relevant if you are using older consoles or legacy AV equipment from the early 2000s. Many retro gaming enthusiasts still prefer component because it provides the best image quality available from older hardware without modifying the console. Compost RCA, Composite is one of the oldest video connections still occasionally found on TVs. It uses 3 RCA cables, a yellow cable for video, and red and white cables for right and left audio. You have almost certainly seen these cables before. They were standard on VCRs, DVD players, older game consoles like the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1, and camcorders throughout the 1980s and 1990s. The image quality from composite is noticeably soft. That is because composite mixes all video information, brightness, color, and sync, into a single cable. When you combine all that information into one signal, quality degrades. Colors can bleed, fine details look blurry, and the maximum resolution is limited to standard definition, around 480i. On a modern flat-screen TV, composite video looks significantly worse than it did on older CRT television. New TVs are starting to drop composite ports entirely. If you have an old console or VCR you want to use, you may need an upscaler or adapter to connect it to a modern display. Despite its limitations, composite remains important for preserving and enjoying classic electronics and home video collections from previous decades. ARC stands for Audio Return Channel. EARC stands for Enhanced Audio Return Channel. These are special versions of HDMI. They look exactly like regular HDMI ports, but they do something extra. Normally, HDMI sends audio and video from a source device to your TV. ARC and EARC allow audio to travel in the opposite direction too, from the TV back out to a soundbar or AV receiver. Without ARC, connecting a soundbar required a separate optical cable for audio. With ARC, one HDMI cable does everything, making setup much cleaner and simpler. EARC is the newer version, and its biggest advantage is audio quality. Standard ARC is limited to compressed audio formats, while EARC supports uncompressed audio, including Dolby Atmos and DTS:X in full quality. If you have a high-end soundbar or home theater system, EARC is the better choice. Most modern TVs have one HDMI port labeled ARC or EARC, usually HDMI 2 or HDMI 3. That is the one you connect your soundbar to. RF coaxial RFX steel is the round, threaded connector you screw a cable into. It is the port you use to connect a TV antenna or a cable TV line directly to your television. RF stands for radio frequency. The signal coming through a coaxial cable carries multiple channels at once, and the TV's built-in tuner separates them into individual channels. Before streaming and before HDMI, coaxial was how almost everyone receives television, through a roof antenna or a cable company's line running into the wall. Today, RF coaxial is still relevant for one main reason: free over-the-air TV. If you connect a digital antenna to the coaxial port on your TV, you can receive local broadcast channels, news, sports, network TV completely free, with no subscription. In the United States, channels broadcast in full HD over the air. The signal quality from a good antenna is often better than the compressed streams from cable providers. For cord cutters who want local channels without paying for a cable package, the coaxial port and a simple antenna is the most practical solution available. That is every major TV input you will find on a modern television, from the HDMI port you use every day to the coaxial connector that has been on TVs for decades. Each one was built for a specific purpose, and knowing what each one does helps you get the best possible picture and sound out of whatever you are connecting. Anyway, I also made some other cool videos too. Don't forget to watch them later. Okay.
Ой,